17,000 tokens per second. That's not a typo. A 25-person startup out of Toronto just built a chip that runs an AI model 73 times faster than Nvidia's H200, at 1/10 the power. The company is called Taalas, and what they've done is something the semiconductor industry hasn't seriously attempted in decades. They hardwired an entire large language model directly into silicon. No programmability, no flexibility, just blistering, physics-defying speed. And that's just one of two major developments this week, because Anthropic just made a move that could reshape who gets to use AI agents. And it's not just developers anymore. Let's start with the hardware story, because the numbers here are genuinely hard to believe until you understand the engineering behind them. Taalas is a Canadian AI chip startup, founded in August 2023 by Ljubica Bojic, along with Drago Injatovic and Lila Bojic. If you follow the chip industry, that first name should ring a bell. Bojic co-founded Tenstorrent, the multi-billion-dollar AI accelerator company. And before that he was a senior architect at both AMD and Nvidia. So this is not some random team making wild claims. These are people who have spent decades designing silicon at the highest level. This week, Taalas unveiled the HC1, what they call a hardcore model chip. And the concept is radical. Instead of building a general-purpose processor that can run any AI model, like a GPU does, Taalas took Meta's Llama 3.18b model and literally baked it into the chip. The model weights, the architecture, the data flow, all of it is hardwired into the transistors. The HC1 is built on TSMC's 6nm N6 process, measures 815 square millimeters, pushing right up against the physical reticle limit for a single chip, and packs 53 billion transistors. Most of that is ROM and SRAM storing the model itself. The result? 17,000 tokens per second per user. To put that in perspective, Nvidia's H200 does about 233 tokens per second on the same model. Cerebrus, which is already considered blazing fast, hits around 2,000. Grok manages roughly 600. Taalas is operating in a completely different stratosphere. The company says inference costs drop to 0.75 cents per million tokens. And the power draw. Each HC1 card uses about 200 watts. You can fit 10 of them in a standard air-cooled server rack, running at just 2,500 watts total. Taalas has now raised $169 million in its latest round, bringing its total funding to $219 million. With backing from Quiet Capital, Fidelity and veteran chip investor Pierre Lamond. The team is just 25 people, most of them engineers from AMD, Apple, Google, Nvidia, and Tenstorrent. Now the obvious question is, why would you want a chip that can only run one model? And that's the right question to ask. Critics have pointed out, correctly, that Llama 3.18b is a relatively small model by today's standards, and the HC1 uses aggressive 3 to 6-bit quantization that does impact quality. One commenter on X put it bluntly, "You're combining the downsides of edge computing with the downsides of data center computing." But here's what the skeptics are missing. The HC1 is not really the product. The process behind it is. Taalas has built a structured ASIC pipeline, where they only need to change 2 mask layers to customize a chip for a different model. That means going from a new model to finished silicon in roughly 2 months. They've already simulated a 30-chip configuration running DeepSeek R1 at 12,000 tokens per second. As one industry observer noted, the question isn't why build a chip for Llama 3.18b. The question is what happens when you can cast any stable production model into silicon in weeks. When inference becomes this cheap and this fast, it fundamentally changes the deployment math. Think always-on local AI assistants that respond before you finish thinking. Real-time code completion with zero perceptible latency. Agentic loops that can iterate thousands of times per minute instead of waiting seconds between each step. This is the kind of hardware innovation that makes AI not just available, but truly ubiquitous. Taalas says their second chip, still on the HC1 platform, will target a mid-sized reasoning model and should be in their labs this spring. After that, an HC2 chip is planned for a frontier-class model. They've mentioned GPT-5.2- scale by the end of the year. If they can deliver frontier-quality inference at anywhere near these speeds, it would be one of the most disruptive hardware developments in AI. You can actually try the current demo yourself at chatjimmy.ai. And fair warning, it's so fast the output looks like a screenshot. So that's the hardware side, making AI inference absurdly fast and absurdly cheap. But speed and cost only matter if the right people can actually use these models. And that brings us to what might be the most important product launch in AI this year. Not because of what it does technically, but because of who it's designed for. Anthropic just took its most powerful agent technology and handed it to everyone. Anthropic, the company behind Claude, has launched a product called Cowork. And to understand why it matters, you need a little context. For the past year, one of the most transformative tools in AI has been Claude Code, Anthropic's command line agent that lets developers point Claude at a code base and have it autonomously write, edit, debug, and ship software. It has been wildly successful among programmers. But here's what Anthropic noticed. Developers kept using Claude Code for everything, not just coding but organizing files, writing documents, processing data. The tool was clearly valuable beyond its intended audience. The problem was you needed to be comfortable with a terminal to use it. Cowork solves that. It brings Claude Code's agentic capabilities into the Claude desktop app, the same friendly interface that millions of people already use to chat with Claude. The way it works is simple but powerful. You designate a folder on your computer, and Claude gets access to it. From there, Claude can read files, edit them, create new ones, rename and reorganize them, all autonomously. Point it at a folder of expense receipts, and it'll build you a spreadsheet. Give it access to your downloads folder, and it'll sort and rename everything. Hand it a pile of sales data, and ask for a report. It'll write one. Anthropic initially launched Cowork on January 12 as a research preview for Mac subscribers on Mac OS. It expanded to Pro subscribers on January 23 and hit Windows on February 10, bringing it to roughly 70% of the desktop computing market. The product is powered by Claude Opus 4.6 with a 1 million token context window, and it connects to Anthropic's ecosystem of external integrations, tools like Asana, Notion, and PayPal. Perhaps the most remarkable detail, the team built the entire Cowork feature in approximately a week and a half, using Claude Code itself. It's dogfooding at its most literal, an AI coding tool building the product that democratizes AI tools. On January 30, Anthropic open-sourced 11 plugins for Cowork spanning sales, legal, finance, marketing, and customer support workflows. These plugins are designed to be easy to build, edit, and share, even for non-technical users. And that's when things got really interesting. The market reaction to Cowork, particularly those plugins, was seismic. In the days following the plugin launch, enterprise software stocks experienced what analysts are now calling the SaaSpocalypse. Thomson Reuters dropped nearly 16% in a single day, its worst ever. LegalZoom fell almost 20%. RELX, the parent company of LexisNexis, dropped 14%. Indian IT outsourcing giants, Infosys, TCS, Wipro, all sank 6 to 7%. In total, roughly $285 billion in market value evaporated. Now, was that an overreaction? Probably, at least in the short term. Anthropic's own executives called it hyperbole, and Gartner analysts noted that Cowork is a task-level disruptor, not a replacement for full enterprise systems. But the signal is clear. The market sees what's coming. Cowork is the bridge between AI for developers and AI for everyone. When a marketing manager can point Claude at a folder and have it autonomously generate campaign briefs, when a founder can have it analyze legal contracts, when an operations lead can automate expense categorization, the economics of who can do what inside a company shift permanently. Small teams can punch far above their weight. Solo founders can operate like they have departments. The software moat that enterprise SaaS companies spent decades building just got a lot shallower. The key things to watch: how quickly third-party plugin development accelerates, whether enterprise customers start replacing SaaS subscriptions with Cowork workflows, and how competitors respond. Microsoft's Copilot is the obvious comparison, but Cowork's advantage is that it inherits Claude Code's battle-tested agentic capabilities rather than starting from scratch. Regulatory pressure is also building. The EU AI Act, takes effect in August, and Colorado's AI Act hits in June. How Anthropic navigates that, while scaling Cowork to mainstream adoption, will define whether this becomes the default way people interact with AI at work. Here's what strikes me about this moment. On one side, a 25-person team just proved you can make AI inference nearly 100 times faster by rethinking the chip from the ground up. On the other, an AI company just proved that the barrier between technical and non-technical users was never a technology problem. It was a design problem. Both of these developments point in the same direction. AI is about to get dramatically faster and dramatically more accessible at the same time. And that combination is going to change things in ways that are hard to predict but impossible to ignore. If you want to stay on top of it, subscribe. We cover this space every single day. See you in the next one.